for a lot of the integrators who are now working in commercial, I would think those clients have really come to expect some sort of customer service contract that they're going to be ready to sign along with all the other services that their retail shop or whatever is already paying for to keep things going. On the corporate side, I'm sure they're used to it.
Yeah, there's a question: can I get better service if I pay you more money? And typically on the commercial side, they're looking for that.
Ah, money, 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 the great motivator. There is simply no better way to move men and expedite plans than with its alluring glint. Would you not agree?
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk Vivint's vehicle detection, getting in the ring, and KBIS attendance. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 422, Peel the Onion. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Arlen Schweiger. He's the editor-in-chief of CE Pro. How you doing, Arlen?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on, as always.
Oh, thank you for being here. Then we have John Yohanna. He's the vice president of residential globally over at Crestron. How you doing, John?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you both for being here. We're going to kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. Vivint users can now monitor for vehicles using AI machine vision. Essentially, you can go into their Vivint Outdoor Camera Pro, and it leverages some AI, in which I'm adding air quotes because it's me. And if you listen to the show, you know where I stand on AI and the term. But essentially, it will identify when a vehicle arrives, leaves, or passes through a designated detection zone. Arlen, let me start with you on this. This is similar to their person detection feature that, again, gives customers more information, right? They're not just getting a notification that there's motion. It gives them context, et cetera, et cetera. They're not the first into this game, but I argue that they might be one of the more effective users of this with the largest install base. Does that help the general acceptance of the item or person detection?
Well, I think it definitely helps the awareness of those capabilities. And like you said, the air quotes around AI, I mean, it's definitely a buzzword
It's machine learning, dang it.
Yeah, it's been thrown around for so long now. It's just starting to get into our space in the custom industry channel. But I can tell you, having worked a lot on our sister publication, Security Sales and Integration, these camera companies and other security companies, I mean, they were at the forefront of the whole AI thing with all of their information and data that they're able to get from what they call, edge devices like a camera, like an NVR, something like that. I think in Vivint's case, because like you said about the customer base, I think they'll give it more awareness. They have so many subscribers out there, and yeah, people don't know these kind of capabilities. They're just starting to learn about them. But like I said, there have been other camera companies. I think of, names like Axis Communications, Bosch, that have been touting these kind of features and even more in-depth features than what Vivint had announced. Any kind of motion that you could filter out in a camera that really provides camera viewers, as much as they want. And really, like that way, moving cars or moving animals and all that kind of stuff can get filtered out. And we have seen that before, just not labeled that way.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, John. I kind of have two questions for you on this. The first is, I love the fact that you can view that footage from the notification. It doesn't have to open the actual app, because I know that is always pushback that we get as an integrator in the field. When we show someone these cool features, they go, oh, that's awesome, but now I got to wait for the app to load, and then it's got to cycle, and it's do a little spinny thingy, and then all of a sudden I can finally see who it is. A, I think that's cool. But B, is the true effectiveness of this when we can kind of tag this just kind of like the face detection, right? Where it can detect who the person is. If it can tell me that it's UPS or FedEx or a random vehicle that pulled into my driveway, that's kind of the context that I would love to see. Do you foresee that coming soon down the pipe?
Yeah, I think, where the technology is, I think it would be pretty easy to not only tell that that's a vehicle, but a specific type of vehicle. Like, most of the Amazon trucks have a certain look to them, right? And, that would be the notification that I would be getting all day long, is that a new Amazon truck has been gone by my house. But seeing things like UPS or some other random vehicle, if I saw something coming up my driveway that was a random vehicle and not one of these other vehicles that I expected, I might pay closer attention to it. Or I might go, click into it, open the app, and then actually review the footage in more detail. But, our lives are going so quickly that oftentimes we just want to see really quick, oh, Amazon's here. And then we go on living our life, right? It's part of the reason why people don't like to go in and open the app and, peel the onion all the way to get to that information. Is it's nice to have, but it's not that important that we're going to go through all that extra effort. So having all those things, being able to indicate what type of vehicle it is, I think is absolutely possible, even with today's technology. And we'll probably start to see that soon.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. As someone who lives close to the road, right? My front cameras, they not only detect, and obviously we can set them and change all that stuff, but I want it to tell me when something stops on the street. And then at the same time, when somebody is just driving by all the time, good gosh, I get a lot of notifications, which is why we turn them off. All right, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Systems and a good friend of the show, Mr. Henry Clifford. Get into the ring. Now it's time to get involved in recurring monthly revenue before the decision is taken out of your hands. As always, Henry writes a great article, in this case, highlighting Snap One's announced service that we've talked about a couple times on the show, their new Connect and Assist plans, where essentially, broad strokes here, people, if you purchase a new Control4 system, you're going to have to sign up for some form of Connect, which again gives them control, not control, but access to provide service and troubleshooting, etc. Henry goes through to also cover some of the other programs out there from Paracel, which he's a co-founder of, OneVision, etc. And essentially what he's saying is that we're getting very close to a time when most systems may have some form of this that's just going to come with your system, whether you like it or not. John, I want to start with you, and I'm not going to ask if Crestron is launching a similar program, because if it wasn't announced, you wouldn't tell me anyways. Are we to a point where we see or view the forced adoption of RMR in our industry as a good thing? Because I am still highly on the fence on this one.
Yeah, well, I think it depends on how you employ the RMR and, who's in charge of that. There's this, I think there's this fork in the road between manufacturers that believe that what we need to do is provide the tools to support the integrator as much as possible to add value to your interaction with the client, and then manufacturers that want to go direct to end user. And, we've chosen to do the first one where, there's a bunch of technology in our software and our solutions that add value to what the dealer can offer to the end user. And we are really encouraging the dealers to come up with their RMR programs and to go back to the end user, to service those jobs, to provide that insight, to continue to update the system. And that's why we continue to upgrade our software. And we upgrade that at no charge, but it requires professional installation, right? So a lot of high-end customers, they don't want to do some of this work themselves, even if they could. They want to have a professional come in and do it for them. That's why not everybody mows their own lawn. So in this case, it depends on what side of the fence you're on. Not whether or not RMR is a thing, because end users will want to pay you to keep their system up to date. Technology continues to march forward. They'll want to pay somebody for that service. They'll want to stay up to date, but who they're going to pay is really the big question. And, there's seems to be a big divide in the industry on that right now.
That is true. Arlen, what about the vast number of integrators, speaking of that divide, that honestly just want nothing to do with an RMR model? Because there's a lot. How do integrators who don't want to play in that game function when, in this case, if they're a Control 4 dealer, when that is almost the only option?
Well, I think for the integrators who don't want to participate in it, when it comes to tough economic times, like the recession that we had, even this year when, people were predicting some rough things. I mean, I think they have to look at some of the savvy integrators who do it. And of course, it depends on the size of the company. If you're a one-man shop, two-man shop, you're not going to, I'm sure, be asking for these types of service contracts and everything because you just don't have the bandwidth. But you can partner with a company like OneVision if you want to do that. But, the fact that it helps so much with revenue when times are tough, that I think that's a good reason for them to get into it. And, they also have to look at some of the other successful industries where people just, they make money by not doing anything except keeping their clients happy, for the time being. And you have to look at the amount of opportunity these days. If you go to a CD Expo, chances are you're going to be talking about RMR with a lot of companies these days because you have things like remote power management, remote networking. Just the opportunity is there to kind of tap into this. And, I think it's an opportunity that it's going to be irresistible, but, it does, I think, depend on the size of the company. But I think they're going to look to other integrators and see that, it provides the chance for more touch points with a customer. It provides a chance for more upsales with a customer. That I think we're going to get to a point where it's going, obviously for Control 4 dealers aside, I think we're going to get to a point where it really is seen as a must-have as part of your business model.
I think for integrators that, really don't want to have anything to do with it, they have to realize that we are in a service industry and those integrators are going to be servicing their clients. I assume you're not talking about the integrators that just want to sell something and then bail on their clients. Like, let's just put them in a different category, right? Mm-hmm. There's the integrators that they just don't want to get hit with all these monthly fees, right? And it seems like that's the way the whole world is going, right? I don't pay for cable anymore. I pay for a dozen different subscription services for all these different streaming apps. But what integrators, I think, should think about is they are going to be providing service to their clients. When the client calls, they're going to have to pick up the phone. If the client wants you to go out there, if you're providing good service to that client, you're going to go. And the real question is, do you set yourself up in a business model where the client knows what to expect? Whether you're charging for it or not is actually kind of a separate point. But do you set up a service business model where the client knows what to expect? They know what the expected response time is from your service. And then maybe they can pay for a better response time or whatever, but setting those rules, therefore you're having a cleaner relationship with your client because they're not saying, hey, get out here now within the hour, when that's not something that you're equipped to deliver. So, I would say the thought should be put into it as far as the service that they're providing.
And I thought John was spot on there. The population, the consumer population has certainly just been brainwashed almost into thinking that, they need to subscribe for things. They're going to be paying on a monthly basis for whatever service they're getting. Mm-hmm. And, maybe that's the way on the Resi side. And for a lot of the integrators who are now working in commercial, I would think those clients have really come to expect some sort of customer service contract that, they're going to be ready to sign along with all the other services that their, retail shop or whatever is already paying for to keep things going. On the corporate side, I'm sure they're used to it.
Yeah. There's a question, can I get better service if I pay you more money? And typically on the commercial side, they're looking for that.
That's the truth. All right, gentlemen, let's hit our last topic of the day. This comes to us from CE Pro. NKBA had their KBIS show this couple of weeks ago out in Las Vegas, and it was one of their biggest shows yet, with, if I can find the number again, there we go, 41,500 registered visitors to the KBIS side of the show, with over 670 exhibitors, and 260 of those were new exhibitors, which is huge. There's a list here of the best booth winners, etc. So go check that out. Arlen, let me start with you on this one. KBIS is one of those shows that I've been watching for, probably 5 or 6 years now, and was planning to go this year and had a scheduling conflict that came up. But it's a show that I haven't been to that I actually want to go to. And typically that's not the case. I hear about new shows and I instantly don't want to go to any of them. How important, or is KBIS important to our industry yet?
Well, I think it's growing in importance. We've seen on the CEDIA Expo side, starting with before the pandemic, where they were making deliberate decisions to have designers at the show, whether or not they're only into kitchen and bath, but obviously that's a large segment of that, of the interior design group. And they were having the tour of booths, meeting some of the technology. And I was on one of those tours, and they're really at a very, very novice level when it comes to technology. So going in the other direction, we've talked a lot about the importance of design services and what they offer customers these days. On CE Pro, we've talked a lot about forging relationships with these designers because they can get integrators into projects earlier, especially for the KBIS show. You're talking about kitchens and baths, which are typically the two biggest rooms to remodel in a home. And so there's a lot of opportunity there to just talk about that and have projects come about if you're able to have those relationships with designers. And I didn't go to the show this year, but I went the previous 2 years. And, the promising thing was you had people like Josh Christian of the HTA doing a lot of evangelizing for the CEDIA channel and integrators at the show, which was really good to see. I was on a panel with him a couple of years ago, talking about some of the technology that we saw there and what HTA was doing to try and sort of cross that divide as well. And I will say, the other thing is that along with KBIS, it's co-located with the Builders Show, where they do have a technology pavilion, and it's easier, at the convention center, it's easy to go from one show to the other. And so that way, integrators can see what's going on both sides. Designers can go over to the Builders Show and see some of that technology. And I think just in general, the designers are becoming more aware of it, but definitely, more education needs to be done. But I think that, possible attraction of getting into a project really early, as opposed to being an afterthought with the design team, with the architects, I think that's the real promise of going to a show like that and making connections.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, John, I want you to tell us a little bit about Crestron's involvement at KBIS, because I know they're in the New American Home model home thing. But I also want to get your opinion on at what point do we as a channel participate in this a little bit more aggressively, whether it's just from an attendance standpoint or whether it's an exhibition standpoint, from this aspect that we should know what the designers and the building community is seeing at their show from a technology standpoint versus the handful of people that come to CEDIA Expo and see what is in our world, right? Can you give us a little insight into that?
Yeah, we have participated in the New American Home and the New American Remodel multiple times. So actually, they do 2 homes for this show. One is a ground up build. That's the New American Home. And another one is remodel, hence the name. And oftentimes we're showcasing our products there and we're involved in those projects. But our entire business development team goes and attends this show. And I think it's really important for our industry to be in sync with what's happening in the builder community and the architect community and the designer community as we legitimize ourselves as a real trade on these projects. Because if that's what we want to be, then we need to be involved with the rest of them. Technology is still black magic to a lot of people, but we are a real trade. When the low voltage guy comes in to put our layer on top of the build, it's just as legitimate as any of the other trades of the drywaller or the framer, the electrician, the plumber. It's a requirement now. Technology is a requirement in the home. Infrastructure, like data networking and all of that is a requirement in the home. They're interested in what we're doing because they're depending on us in a lot of cases. Even a lot of the appliances and the fixtures and bathtubs and toilets and faucets and things are becoming quote unquote smart. And maybe even to antagonize you a little bit, have AI built into them, and you can get an AI faucet. But these other trades are realizing that technology is a big part of their job, right? So I think it's time for us to all come to the same table, and we should be paying attention to this.
Arlen, give me your thought on this just before we close. Should this be kind of the third show that residential integrators attend, right? They attend Expo. They should be attending Infocom if they're playing in commercial at all. And I think they should be going to, as someone who's never been to it, but I think they should be going to KBIS and IBS.
Yeah, clearly. I would think so. I would put it right up there. I mean, we've seen how Lightapalooza has taken off, and a lot of those lighting companies originated from, say, the KBIS channel, and then discovered, hey, oh my God, there's this whole other custom integration channel where, we can combine with integrators, with technology, and get, a larger piece of the pie on a project. So yeah, I would definitely suggest that people go and do that. And, just one thing to what John was saying, I would like to give a shout out to Crestron. We haven't posted it yet online, but they're clearly a company that's on top of this. In our April issue coming up, we have a health and wellness deep dive report on those technologies. And we got a really nice, I won't spoil it, but we got a really nice contribution from Crestron on this exact topic, kitchen and bath opportunities. So when you get a huge company in our market that gets it like that, I think there's just a natural segue for other companies to get involved, put some different products out there. And I think for integrators to go to this kind of show, maybe, like I said, for, even networking purposes, it's a great show, but they can also consider bringing clients to the show. That way customers can see a bit more about, oh, hey, we can get technology and we can have our kitchen and baths redone and other interior design capabilities.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap it there. Thank you both so much for joining us. John, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Crestron, where can they do that?
Yeah, so Crestron.com is easy, and specifically residentially, we have CrestronHome.com, which is a great place to see all our residential offerings as well as our Crestron Home operating system.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right, Arlen, if people want to connect with you, learn more about CE Pro, where can they do that?
Sure. They can go to cepro.com, and they can also check in with me on LinkedIn at Arlen Schweiger.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and X and LinkedIn and Instagram and all that jazz. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This is AVNation.
This is AVNation.